Hey everyone, in this video we're going to look at how Cura slices up our objects for the 3D printers. This is the program that changes our 3D design into G-code, the math that gets fed into the printer and tells the printhead and print bed how to move. So what we're going to look at here is sort of the bottom layer, somewhere in the middle, and the top layer, just to understand how the printhead moves. There'll be segments of this video where I actually show you the printhead moving, and I may just fast forward through those so you can quickly look at it. But all these considerations should be taken into account when you're designing, because you need to think about this and how it affects your overall print, especially if you're looking for something that has a specific finish or has a lot of intricate design work on the edges or on the interior, because you have to be able to remove the print from the print bed and not wreck it. So in this case, we're looking at the bottom layer here, and we can see that there are 4 colors on the screen: blue, red, green, and yellow. And we have a little key here on the screen that showcases what those colors mean, and I'm just going to talk about them really briefly. The teal color, or like the cyan color I should say, sorry, is our brim. The brim is used to hold an object down to the print bed to keep it from curling or popping off. This is really important with something of this shape because of this long pointy end like the foot. Without the brim, those corners might not adhere properly, they might not stick down properly, and they might pop up. The red layer is what we call the shell. That's the plastic we can actually touch, that we can put our physical fingers on and actually be like, oh, hey, this is made of plastic. So we call that the shell in 3D printing. The green layer behind it is called the inner wall. That's added for strength, because you can imagine if you only had a single layer of plastic on the outside, that would be pretty weak, and you could probably put your finger through it. So we can build those up over time. Next, we have the top and bottom. You're going to see this yellow pattern repeat at the top of the object as well. But if we zoom in here, you can actually see that there is a third line that goes around the perimeter. So we actually have 3 walls. We have the shell, the inner wall, and then a third wall per se that sort of gives us maximum strength. We then go through and fill the void with all the plastic we can, trying not to leave any gaps. And this one did a pretty good job of printing. There's a little bit of a gap here on the corner, but in real life that would just sort of be oozed out and fully filled in. So ideally this will all fill in perfectly here. So we're going to jump out, sort of like zoom out, and I'm going to hit play. And you can see sort of how the printhead moves around. We can see the brim getting laid down in a nice orderly fashion. The printhead moves around the perimeter of the shape, and as I speed up, you'll see it do sort of concentric laps, following the same shape, but each time getting a little bit skinnier, or sorry, a little bit shorter on the inside until it fills into the shape. And then we're going to see the shell, the red layer, get laid down. So it's going to see the switch right there. There's our shell. Then it's going to go and do the inner layer. So we can see the inner layer coming out with the green. And it does this very methodically. And once the outer shell and the inner wall are completed, it'll go back and do the bottom filling. And we can see that there's that third wall I mentioned earlier. And then it goes back and fills it in methodically. It looks like it's leaving gaps, but the machine knows those gaps are there and it'll come back and fill those in. It tries to be as efficient as possible when filling in these shapes. Okay, and it does a pretty good job. Next, we're going to jump up to sort of the midpoint of this object, and I'm going to zoom in, and we can see these weird orange things are now on our screen. Okay, these orange layers are called supports. And we can see that they're small, skinny layers or lines of plastic laid on top of each other, and these go from wall to wall, and they actually generate the strength within our object. This object is currently set to 20% infill. If I was to go and change it from, let's say 20%, let's change it to, I don't know, 40%. So infill is right there. If I type in 40 and I hit slice again, you'll see that we have more infill or more grid lines. Okay, so it's just tighter. So I'm going to leave it at 40% for the rest of this demonstration. And we're going to look at how the printhead goes around. So again, you can see the inner wall and the shell getting laid down first, very similar to the bottom layer. So we'll go around and do all of that work. And then we get to the point in here where it's filling in the infill, and you can see it lays down this crisscross grid, which is really cool because all these triangles add support to our object. And layer by layer, our shape builds up until it reaches the desired thickness. So I'm going to jump through some layers here on my right, and you can sort of see what that looks like as it goes up. We eventually get to the point where we need to cap or finish our print, and that's about right here. Okay, so I'm just going to jump down one layer. Actually, I'll leave it here, I think. If I hit play, yeah, perfect. Okay, so you can see the gray layer is our last layer, layer 47, and now we're laying down layer 48, and we can see the inner shell and the inner wall and the shell getting laid down methodically, very similar to the start and sort of the midpoint of the print. But now we can see that it's coming around, and very similar to when we laid the bottom down, it's laying down a third wall, but then it's going to bridge the gaps of all of our infill. And because those gaps are small enough, the plastic doesn't sag. It goes from side to side and it starts to fill it in. Okay, so this is the first layer of our top. Similar to the shell, the inner wall, and then that third wall, we're actually going to lay down 3 layers of plastic on the top. So we have the same strength on the top as we do on the sides. So there's our first. If I jump up to layer 49, there is our third layer, and then the last layer, layer 50, is our final cap. Okay, and then when all is said and done, we get this nice little keychain. And if I go back into prepare, you can see sort of there's our 3D representation that we would have seen in something like Tinkercad, and this is what the computer program translates it to for the printer. So in a nutshell, it's a pretty cool idea. You can play around with this in Cura, and you can move your object up and down on the layers, and you can actually hit play and watch the printhead move around and sort of do its work, so you can help yourself understand how an object is printed. This is a really great process to go through as an extension for an object that has an overhang, so that you can see how supports are generated. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.